看国际辩论社第25集的播出。以哈战争爆发至今，以联合国为首，许多国家纷纷向以色列施压，要求以色列停火，并且要停止在加萨地带的行动。那么以色列的说法是在加萨持续铲除哈马斯势力都有提前预告他们会进攻的行动，就是要让平民可以来撤离。但是实际上，哈马斯却是在阻止平民撤离，也阻止撤离消息的传播。如此的困境到底要持续多久？这一集的观点好谈，我们再度邀请到以色列驻台代表游玛雅，带我们来了解以哈战争在持续2个月后，到底有没有即将结束的可能。而在这周，我们首先要看到的是香港的学运领袖周庭，他自曝弃保流亡加拿大。他也透露，为了要取回护照，今年8月前往深圳接受爱国洗脑教育。对此，香港特首李家超扬言，警方会对他终身追捕。
とにかく恐怖しかなかったんですけれども、選択もなかった。
周庭3日在 IG 发长文，提到获得保释后前往加拿大攻读硕士，为了取回护照，今年8月在香港国安人员陪同下前往深圳1日游，包括参观改革开放展览，到腾讯总部了解祖国科技发展，还得亲笔写信感谢警方安排，过程宛如爱国洗脑教育。香港企业家、中共前政协委员刘梦熊认为，这种做法类似毛泽东过去特赦战犯，将人带去参观建设成就的思想改造手段。
愛国主義、愛国的な人にならないと、昔のように批判的な意見を出すと、パスポートが戻らないという。
港府立刻强烈谴责周庭弃保潜逃，还放话终身追捕。中国外交部也跳脚。
The police will do their utmost to pursue her, to arrest her. Fugitives will be pursued for life, unless they turn themselves in.
任何违法犯罪行为必然受到法律的惩处。
中国展开海外镇压行动早有前例，流亡荷兰的中国异议人士曾差点落入中国海外警察手中，而周庭似乎铁了心，就怕回香港后被禁止出境。虽然未明确说明是否与家人断绝关系，但他强调免于恐惧的自由多么可贵，不想再身心崩溃。
美国观测站，我们这周要来聚焦。现在外媒有报道说，从中东到欧洲再到南海的3重危机，让一些观察家很担心，拜登政府可能没有办法通过关键的压力测试。现在加入我们的是美国之音白宫记者黄耀义。好，要请教您，这关于美国的参谋长联席会议副主席 Christopher Grady， 他在12月4号出席了智库活动时说到，美国军方呢可以同时支持乌克兰、以色列跟台湾，可以跟我们说明一下吗？
是的，晨曦，我们先来看一下他说这个话的背景哦。所以12月4号呢，其实是白宫来敦促美国国会通过之前他们所提出的这个对外援助补充预算案的日子。这个白宫的预算办公室主任呢，舍兰达样还在当天特别致函给这个参众两院的这个国会领导人啊，敦促他们赶快来通过这份的预算，还说呢，如果不通过，在年底之前呢，给乌克兰的钱就要全部都用光了。那么这个4合1的提案呢，之前我们提过了，除了给乌克兰、以色列援助之外呢，还有在印太地区抗中的经费，以及美国南方边境所需要的经费。那我们认为呢，大家来讲，普遍这个抗中的部分，其实讲的就是要来援助台湾，只不过我们每次被问的时候，白宫都不明讲台湾这2个字。那么，所以是在这样一个背景之下呢，这个雷迪在当天出席活动的时候，才说出了说，国防部能够对以色列、乌克兰还有台湾提供安全援助，但是他怎么说呢？他说，但是国会必须要通过补助预算案。那所以我们看到这国会的立场还是很重要的，但是现在这个补助预算案现在就是卡在美国国会不通过，主要就是因为白宫提案当中关于这个南方边境的部分呢，共和党方面是不同意的。但是白宫已经多次的表示了，这个4合1提案是缺一不可，表示要全部通过才能够来保障美国的国家安全。那么在星期2的这个白宫新闻简报会上呢，白宫的这个国安顾问苏利文就说，他说对支持乌克兰投下反对票，就是对普丁推进战略地位投下赞成票。 那么记者就问苏立文说呢，好，如果你是这样讲说投下这个反对票就是来支持普丁的话呢，那如果说这个法案当中有给台湾的这个钱，那如果你今天不来支持这个法案，是否就是对习近平投下赞成票，就是对中国共产党投下赞成票？那或者是呢，这个法案当中也有这个以色列的这个援助款，那如果说呢投下反对票的话，也就是支持哈马斯喽。那么对此呢，这个苏立文也做出了解释。
Our view is that every dollar that is in this package is meant to enhance the national security of the United States and the peace and stability in vital parts of the world. That's why we want people to vote for it. Not voting for it, in our view, for the package in its totality, we believe is a vote against what is necessary to secure America's national security objectives.
不过我们看到呢，现在这个法案呢，都还是卡在国会当中卡关，所以呢，无论包括像是白宫、国务院或是国防部的对台湾的政策，或对其他国家援助的政策是怎么样呢？最后国会的态度还是非常关键的。晨曦。
那么，要依着美国的加州雷根总统基金会以及研究所发布了第6次的年度国防调查，而且竟有过半数的美国人都认为说中国是美国的最大威胁。可不可以再跟我们解释一下这份报告的内容呢？
是的，在这一份调查报告当中呢，有这个超过一半的美国人，也就是51%的美国人呢，认为中国是对美国构成最大威胁的国家。那么其中包括了在民主党方面的40%的人这样认为，那么在共和党方面呢，有66%的人是这样认为。所以这基本上是一个跨党派的共识。那么在2018年第一次进行这所谓的雷根国防调查的时候呢，当时只有21%的人是把中国视为最大的威胁。不过到今天呢，有51%了。那么，我们知道拜登总统经常说，美国跟中国现在是一个竞争对手的关系哦。那么，在本次民调当中呢，包括在军事、外交、经济实力方面呢，美国民众都认为说美国是占上风的。但是在人工智慧 AI 还有网络功能这个网络能力方面呢，民众认为现在中国是占了上风。那么此外呢，有73%的美国人认为台湾担心可能会被入侵，而68%的民主党跟共和党人都把台湾视为盟友，所以这也是一个跨党派的共识。那么对于是否支持台湾在被中国这个武力犯台的时候呢，来出兵美军保卫台湾，在2023年呢有46%的人赞成，那当时在2019年的时候呢，只有39%的人，所以是逐年上升的。那么在之后提供更多关于台湾民主还有战略重要性的资讯了之后呢，民众的看法认为说，要来支持派兵保卫台湾的人数呢，则是上升到了52%。那60%的美国人呢，是支持要增加美国在台湾附近的军事存在，来维护和平，并且阻止中国的入侵。另外呢，还有55%的美国人是支持增加对台军售。那么呢，我们要值得注意的是说呢，在解读这种民调的时候呢，认为应该这么做，跟愿意来承担后果这个中间可能是会有一点落差跟差距的我们举个例子来说好了，在这份民调当中呢，我们看到美国人对乌克兰的支持度还是高达59%，但我们同时也看到了乌俄战争已经造成2年的世界的整体的通货膨胀、供应链的这个破坏、粮食的短缺、能源价格上涨等等。那所以我们又看到说，美国人一方面支持乌克兰，但是又会说，为什么物价上涨啊？为什么现在买东西都好贵啊？为什么我现在去加油这个燃料变得这么的贵？所以呢，美国人是否好像在民众方面没有办法把这个支持来与他作战，跟来承担这个战争的后果能够做一个完整的连结？那我们也看到了，现在通货膨胀跟经济也已经成为本次美国2024年总统大选的重要议题之一了。其实拜登政府多次强调说，现在通膨很多东西都是因为乌俄战争，因为普丁的一些的能源还有这些战争的政策而导致的，甚至他直接取名叫做 Putin's price hike， 也就是普丁之物价飙涨，用这样子一个这个讲法呢，希望民众能够接受。但是我们看到还是很多的美国民众在责怪政府说没有把经济给搞好，所以呢，在这个大选当中也可能成为一个很重要的议题。所以呢，像这样的一个现象呢，像乌克兰作为例子呢，也是我们来研读这样子一个民调的时候呢，需要特别来注意的。晨曦。
的确，经济低迷之下，许多民众呢都会对支持的对象做更全面的评估，还有检视。我们再次要谢谢美国之音记者黄耀义从美国白宫带来的第一手观察。接着说到以色列全民皆兵，女性也有服兵役的义务。 但是过去呢，在以色列也有舆论认为女兵不该上战场。但以哈冲突2个多月来，这女性的士兵不仅他们开坦克进战场，还在前线解救受困的居民。
抓起配备，冲向坦克，穿越沙地，加速冲刺。
פשוט דורסת את המחבלים וממשיכה הלאה, יוצאת להתקפה. יש מקלעים לוודא השמדה על כל מה שנמצא במרחב.
巾帼不让须眉，讲的就是以色列女性，因为她们从18岁起就准备为国家卖命，甚至开坦克上战场。
מה זה משנה? המחבלים יודעים שהיה בנות בטנקים? לא. למה נראה לך שהם ראו את השיער של מיכל בורח מהג'אנטקס? לא. בנים בנות, מה זה משנה?
只不过体能上虽然确实不如男性，但以色列女性用行动证明有能力来到战场最前线。
התחיל לסרוק, אני ישר טוענת את הכלים שלי. כל הצוות פשוט אומר לי שהוא מזהה מחבלים, ואנחנו מתחילות לבצע ירי. מתחילות בהתחלה בירי של מקלעים למחבלים שיותר קרובים אלינו.
特别是以哈冲突中，在高压下潜能激发，为了对抗哈马斯，只花短短10分钟，学会开装甲车救下以色列聚落。
אף אחד מאיתנו לא יודע איך להשתמש בקטלן. זו מערכת שאף אחד, זו הסמכה שצריך לעבור בצבא. אף אחד מאיתנו לא ידע. בערך 10 דקות כולנו הפכנו למומחיות במערכת. יודעות בדיוק איך להפעיל אותה, איך לראות, איך לתפעל כל מעצור.
יודעים ככה בשטח באותו רגע, איך להתמודד עם סיטואציה.
כמה שעות נלחמתן ברציפות?
בסביבות 17 שעות.
בתוך הטנק?
כן.
虽然跟哈马斯战斗的时候，也是有脆弱的时候。
יכולה להגיד לי מה עוד עובר לך בראש?
עוברים לי בראש הילדים שלי. 3 ילדים.
但不管是提枪确保四周安全，还是挺进第一线抢救受困民众，这次的以哈冲突再次证明，士兵上战场，性别真的不是问题。
Let's talk 观点好谈. Hamas launched its largest scale attack on Israel in 50 years on the morning of October 7th. This assault marked Israel's re-entry into a state of total war, with the Gaza Strip engulfed in the flames of conflict, resulting in heavy casualties on both sides. Despite a temporary ceasefire in between, the hostilities have reignited after 2 months. Everyone wished to know when this war will come to an end. Today, we're honored to invite Israeli representative to Taiwan, Maya Yarin, back to our program to provide us with the latest updates on the situation 2 months into the conflict. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us again.
And thank you for having me again.
After 2 months, we'd like to have an update on Israel's military operations currently. We know that hostages has been released, some hostages. There's still more there back in the Gaza Strip. And also, speaking of the progress of the attack on Hamas, like now combating Hamas, is it all aligned with our expectations?
Yeah. So today is the 60th day of this war, which started on October 7, really, as you were saying, in a surprise terror attack on Israeli citizens in Israeli territory in our homes and villages. And this war is being fought out of a responsible manner, which means that it is not coming out of revenge or out of rage. We have a set expectations and goal for this war. Number 1, to return the hostages. Number 2, to dismantle the military capabilities of Hamas. And number 3, to not come back to the same threat that we used to have from Gaza Strip, the one that we had during the status quo, that every few months we had another round of military operations. We cannot go back to the same fight. Now, during the last week, we have seen with a lot of happiness and relief the return of 110 women and children, hostages. It's been 50 days, more than 50 days that they were held. And slowly, we start to hear the stories about them being hostage. We see the starvation on their bodies. Some of them lost, the children, 15% of their body weight. Old women lost between 8 to 15 kilos in 50 days. This is starvation. We hear about them being underground, alone, some of them, being beaten, being kept in quiet. So we are starting to hear, and it's important for me to say because here on the media in Taiwan and also in the world, we saw the media portraying an equal image of the Palestinian families and the Israeli families being happy and relieved to see their loved one come back. But there is a huge difference between the two populations which returned. The Israelis were children and women. They were innocent civilians dragged out of their homes. And on the Palestinian side, these are convicted criminals. They were either on the way or already convicted in terrorism acts for stabbing, for planning attacks on Israeli civilians. So there is a huge difference between the two groups. Now, we still have 137 hostages being kept in Gaza. 20 of them are women. And now that we start to hear the evidence and the testimonies about this specific violence against women that was brutally performed by the Hamas terrorists on October 7th, the rapes and the sexual assaults, we are now starting to question why Hamas does not release those 20 women. Do they not want us to hear what is really happening there? So hostages is one of the priorities. But dismantling Hamas, the military capabilities, is something that we will have to continue doing. We only started with the north of Gaza, and we will continue doing so until we know that there is no longer a threat. Now, Hamas has been building itself, its capabilities, for 17 years. 17 years that they are there controlling the area and building the underground tunnels. So this will not be ending in a day. It will take time until we will be able to finish what we have set to do.
You mentioned about the underground tunnels in Gaza. And also I would like to ask about, I know that Israel intends to destroy this tunnel, which served as the main supply chain for the people in Gaza.
Yeah.
Will there be any considerations of humanitarian crisis, even though we know that this is a target that must be considered? But do you think there will be a crisis of humanitarian?
Yeah. I want to say that, and I've been stating that a long time, that the Hamas is our enemy and it's not the Palestinians. And I will say it bluntly. If Israel did not care for the Palestinian civilians, this war would have been ended on October 8th. It would have been a very quick one. But this is not the situation. We are there, and we're not only there from the air, we're there on the ground, which means that we're putting our soldiers in a much, much greater risk, because to be there in a direct contact with the Hamas terrorists puts our people in a life danger. And we do that. We're willing to do that because we care for the Palestinians and because we're a responsible country and we try to minimize the harm for civilians. Now, it's not easy because only yesterday we came up saying we have found 800 shafts, the piers to the tunnels, and we already destroyed about 500 of them. We now have evidence and we can show that these tunnels are in the hospitals, nearby schools, in regular apartments, in kindergartens. We see that in the pictures. We have ammunition that we found in children's rooms, in houses. There is no question about it. It's not claiming anymore. Now we are trying to do the best that we can to take the citizens, the civilians, out of the war zone. There will not be a humanitarian problem if there would not be civilians in that area. Now, how to do this? This is the question, right? How to take out the civilians from North Gaza to southern Gaza to safer areas, and now to even more condensed areas, again, according to our instructions. So we give notice, pamphlets, radio, phone calls, SMSs. We put a map of Gaza with the specific regions within the area, so we can give instructions for people from that area, those streets, please move to the other area. Nobody had a fight like this before. Think about it. We're actually telling our enemies, Hamas, we're coming, prepared. Be prepared to our soldiers. But this is what we have to do in order to protect the civilians. And on the same time, we continue to bring humanitarian aid to the southern areas of Gaza. So there are more than 3,000 trucks of humanitarian aid, food, water, tents, blankets, medical supplies. Everything is coming to southern part of Gaza. There are field hospitals that were being instructed during the humanitarian pause when we had our hostages back. Few countries installed field hospitals in the southern part of Gaza. There are foreigners and people who are ill that have left Gaza through Rafah to Egypt to receive medical care. So we do care about the humanitarian situation, and we do say that there is a difference between North Gaza and South Gaza, and we request the civilians listen to us. We're given instructions that are supposed to save your lives. So please listen to us. And at the end, we're requesting the whole international community to put the pressure on Hamas. Hamas is the ruler still in that area. Hamas is the one that was embedding himself inside of civilian areas. So Hamas is the one that needs to feel so much pressure, economic, military, political, really to have the whole international community pressuring Hamas.
Indeed. Regarding what you just said, there's 2 points I would like to stress more. First of all, is the civilians and the Palestinian people in Gaza, and the second one is the pressure, the international pressure on Hamas, and also some voices that's on Israel as well. But let's start with the civilians. Yeah. We know that you mentioned that Israel really made all their effort to let all the civilians know that, hey, we're coming, here's the signs, please go to this certain places for your safety. But we also know that Hamas has made like the largest hospital as their command center. Yeah. And also they're like really holding all these civilians as their shields to protect themselves, basically. Yeah. So how do the Israel's military really can distinguish between Hamas and civilians? How to really protect them from, because even though they wanted to run for their lives, they're just civilians, but they couldn't because they're like basically also hostages by Hamas as well. Yeah. Like what can they do?
You are so true to say that Palestinians, as Israelis, are victims of Hamas. This is why we're saying, free Gaza from Hamas. Because we hear the voices of some of the Palestinians now that we enter into that area. And we hear them happy and saying, good that you came, to take Hamas off. It's a good question, how do we distinguish? And it's a very easy answer, actually. When you have somebody pointing weapon towards you, he's not an innocent civilian. When you have somebody point an RPG on your car, he's not an innocent civilian. And it's true that we see in life and also in some of the videos that Hamas and Islamic Jihad have been published, that their terrorists have been wearing regular clothes, not their military uniform that they have. So it is sometimes confusing, but there is no question when somebody is with a weapon towards you. So this one we target. Now we have intelligence and we have planning of this operation. This is, again, it's not coming out of spontaneous reaction. This is coming from targets that have been looked at by experts. And within our experts, we always have lawyers, international humanitarian law experts, who are making sure that every target that we're choosing is according to the international humanitarian law. And if there is any doubt about that, then we postpone. And I want to give an example. We had a fight where we had our IDF soldiers coming towards a building, towards a neighborhood, and then Hamas was sending 100 children and women, Palestinians, towards them. Of course that there was no question. Of course that we did not have this fight. Okay, so we definitely have clear lines. Again, this is the difference between a responsible country, a democracy, and the way that we have our decisions and plans, and the fact that we're fighting against a terror organization. And I will say, it's the first time in the world. It's the first time that we're having such a complex, challenging war. Nobody before it was fought like this. So if anybody has a better solution how to fight a terror organization that is inside civilians without harming the civilians, we're very much open to hear that. I can give example about the Shifa hospital that you were mentioning, because it shows the complexity. You know, we gave warning to the hospital for more than 2 weeks before that we're going to come. We had an opening corridor, humanitarian corridor, for the people from the hospital to go to the south part. When we entered, we didn't bomb from the air, but we came in a ground operation with medical teams, with people who speak Arabic, with medical equipment, with fuel for the operation of the hospital. And then we entered, and what did we find? We find military command office in the X-ray department. We find weapons and ammunitions on the MRI. We found the shafts on the basement going down to the tunnels from the hospital itself. We saw the video cameras showing the footage of the hostages being brought there on October 7th. So all of that was evidence. Now, today, the hospital is operating in a hybrid operation. It's an amazing example that no one had before. From the first floor up, think about your hospital here in Taipei. First floor up, it's a civilian operation, which means that they still have medical care and they still have people come and receive what they're needing. And from the ground floor down, it's under IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, the military control. And they have taken out the tunnels. This is the complexity of this war. It's not an easy one. It's really not an easy one.
Like you said, that Hamas initiated this war in October. Everyone's definitely shocked by the attack. But also, as Israel enters Gaza, there's more pressure on Israel as well, because there's a global sympathy toward the people, the Palestinian people. And we know that the United Nations even condemns Israel as the possibility of violating the war crime. So what's your take on this? How do you see this, and how do you really just legitimate all the actions, like you said, because of course you have to fight back. But even though with all the pressures, how do you face this pressure? How do Israel face this pressure?
I think that the way that we are stating this is basically we are telling the people, leaders, parliament members, politicians, key personnel, we are showing them what happened on October 7th. And when people see that, they understand. They understand few things. They understand how education system by the Palestinians really educated the children into hate and violence, and that this is a problem that it's not only for Israel to solve. This is actually a problem that we, all of us, the international community, needs to solve. They understand that there's a saying called the West is next, that this is not only a problem of Israel. This is against all Jews around the world, and there are Jewish communities also here in Taiwan, but definitely in other places, and that they need to take care of them. They understand that we see the terrorism and this extreme ideology is relevant also here in Asia. Only 2 days ago, we saw the attack in the Philippines. We saw a couple of weeks ago the attack in India happening. So this is not only relevant to us, this is relevant for many other countries, and people know that. And I think that people also understand that we need to find a solution that it's not only the responsibility of Israel. Now, we are saying with the support of the US, which is very important for us, that there is a lot the international community can do. One, they can put the pressure not only on Hamas, but also on the other proxies. Proxies are being held and guided by Iran. And we see that in few fronts now. We see it in Hamas in Gaza. and Islamic Jihad. We see it in Hezbollah in Lebanon, and we see it with the Houthis in Yemen. The Yemen has just had missiles coming towards Israel. Each missile is about $8 million. Yemen is a very poor country. Where does the money come from? At the end, this is all coming from Iran. And if the international community will not state very loud and clear to Iran that this is unacceptable, then the problems that we're going to have are much bigger than the current situation only between Israel and Gaza. So we have been stating from day one, we don't want this war to be extended any further. But what we're seeing on our northern border with Hezbollah and what we're witnessing with the disturbing of Iran is something that needs to concern all the international community.
Do you believe that after this conflict, will Israel be more safer? Especially because, like you just mentioned, like Hamas, even though if Israel can really eradicate Hamas through this war, through this force, maybe another Hamas would appear again in this globe.
Yeah.
How will Israel be more safe after this conflict?
We are only, I don't know if to say the beginning, I hope it's the middle of this war with Gaza and that it will stay only this war with Gaza. And I don't know what will happen next. We're not sharing our military operational planning for this, but it will take longer because this is really an intense one. But as I was saying before, there are other actors in the area. And Iran and Hezbollah are the immediate threat that we're seeing now. So I don't know what will happen, and there is a big question how this war will be evolved. And that will answer maybe about the security of Israel after that. What we can say is that we do not want to control Gaza. We do not want to conquer Gaza. There is no intention of that. We left in 2005 without an intention to go back. This is one. The second, the Palestinians will have to choose a responsible and I hope better leadership for themselves. But this is up for the Palestinians to choose. The third is that we will not be able to have any military threat, security threat from Gaza on our border, and I will extend that. Also from Hezbollah on the north border with Lebanon towards Israel. And on that, we have UNIFIL. We have the UN peace forces that are there on a recognized international solution which should be implemented on that ground. So we will see what will be the solution. It will take some time until that, but we will not be able to go to the same situation again. And I really trust that with responsible leadership from all sides, we will be able at the end to go back into living at peace in our homes, both Israelis and Palestinians. This is important for all of us.
Yes. As we all can see, this war, in fact, any war is ruthless. The greatest victim are always innocent civilians. We pray for the day when peace arrives. Thank you, Maya, so much for joining us again and updating us the more situations of it.
Thank you.
感谢您收看这一周的国际辩论社，我是刘晨曦，我们下周再会。